Hey, I want to showcase a build that I was playing in the Crucible League and also found hardcore. I got to level 100, Ignosed guy at level 90 and he was dumb and died to Fizz Reflect. I was able to kill a lot of pinnacle bosses and do some uber content like simulacrums up to wave 26 and uber timeless emblems. I was very happy with the build and it felt really good to play. Hands down one of my favorite builds I ever played in this game. I will start by explaining skill and interaction and what in my opinion makes a build powerful. Earthshatter is a slam skill that creates 5 fishes and only one of them damages the enemy, kinda like multi-approach projectile skills. At the end of each fish, Earthshatter leaves a spike, to a total of 5 spikes from an attack, that can be exploded into area damage when you use Warcry. Damage of those spikes can overlap, usually only 2 spike explosions hit the target, which results in the skill effectively doing double the damage. If the target is larger or close to your wall, more spike explosion may overlap, increasing the skill damage, which makes knockback in a weird way a damage buff, like from Lion's Roar or Granite Flask. Now to war cries. For mapping and clear, I use Intimidating Cry, Seismic Cry and Enduring Cry. For bossing, you might want to swap Enduring Cry with Rattling Cry for more damage but less recovery. A combination of Echo Secretion and Second Wind support allows me to have big uptime on Intimidating Cry exerts. On bosses it's even better to play cooldown based skills, cause it makes your damage more bursty after downtime on mechanics. The Berserker Ascendancy gives us even more damage due to our playstyle. If you hit a unique enemy or you have minimum Warcry power mastery, with a Warcry your rage will instantly go up to full, which allows you to have almost 100% uptime on the Berserk buff, and sacrifice some rage with Warcry for Warbringer buff. With a combination of Aspect of Carnage, this Ascendancy gives us a 264 damage multiplier and even more with speed bonuses from Rage and Berserk. This combination of damage interactions allows me to drop a lot of the damage nodes on a tree and allocate 6 life notables for 6 life masteries, plus the Bako from Glorious Vanity Timeless unique jewel. This allows this build to completely ignore spell suppression and only focus on stacking armor with newly added body armor the Force Vow, which has a great combo with the Bako. During mapping, I felt incredibly safe. My life pool almost never fell down and insane recovery via Warcry mastery plus 4 second Enduring Cry buff resulted in 3k life regen per second. I know that recovery is a fake defense, but it felt really nice and added to my life for the build, so I played it long. And the only day I died on this character was eating corpse explosion from Maligare during the Maven fight. About the uniques, the Bako converts half of the damage taken to chaos damage, and the Force Vow makes it so our armor applies to our chaos damage taken, making our armors affecting all damage type and making us very tanky. Echoes of Creation gives us up to 30% more damage with exerts or 45% with Rattling Cry swap, and it gives +1 cooldown use, which is very powerful and very effective. Downside is completely negated by high armor. Also, since Echoes of Creation hits us, it allows us to have vulnerability curse in custom damage taken links, and it will use curse something like every 3 attacks, calculating in my armor and my PDR. Don't try this. Makes Valve Warchief give us 64% more damage instead of 32%, which is a huge damage boost. Now to gameplay. You have a lot of damage multipliers from your Warcries and your totems, so make sure to apply exerts to all your attacks and spawn totems versus tanky enemies. You will attack a couple times with your exerted attacks from Intimidating Cry and then you explode your spikes. And make sure to use all your Intimidating Cry exerts and try to use most of Seismic exerts, do not refresh too early. I want to stress the importance of pressing your buttons correctly and often. Warcry plus Warbringer plus Echoes of Creation give us a lot of damage. Totems plus Dawn Striders give us also a lot of damage. If you don't press any of that, your build just does no damage. It's very important. About to the new league, Trial of the Ancestor real quick. I had an axe with a Crucible tree on it, which sounds very powerful, but it is just a lot of increased damage. My axe actually can be replaced by a better rare axe, without a tree, cause I had to throw some pretty good axes away that didn't have a Crucible mod. My axe was rolled decently low. Just look at if you have a good axe, this build can be just as good if not better. So for me at this point, losing Crucible passives is not that impactful, cause I didn't have a GG Crucible tree anyway. Trials of the Ancestor balance changes are very minor. For my character, Champions of the Cause get moved down, so that my guy needs to spend 1 extra passive point You can just do it and accept it, and it's totally fine, totally okay, you just lose one passive point. Or I can suggest you to change the tree into sovereignty tree on the top left side. That has multiple benefits. You no longer need small reservation cluster or enlighten, but this version of the tree is just as good as your jewels. I would only recommend to swap to this tree when you have couple 3-4 prop jewels for damage, and you also have both of the cluster jewels, because you'll have to drop a lot of increased damage from your tree. Otherwise, the sovereignty tree in many cases is better. Your PDR is higher and your life total is higher, helping you with the elemental damage. The only thing you lose is some crit reduction nodes, which is upsetting, but that would comes with the nerfs. I will link both trees, the sovereignty tree and my guy from the last league, completely unchanged, so you can look how my character looked. You can decide for yourself what do you want to play more. Now to leveling. I will have POB fork link in description with all the leveling trees. Make sure to check those out if it's not too troublesome. I will have some nodes there too, and all the progression links and items. I do want to point out that this build is not the best S tier 10 out of 10 league starter. It's not gonna be smooth from leveling into mobs into your Atlas progression. It will have rough edges. My build uses 3 Alrion crafts to reduce mana cost. Without them, mana cost on just one Warcry is 30 mana. My mana pool total is 40. Build will have rough moments and you will have to grind to get some decent upgrades and move forward. And I will provide you with a couple of the solutions from my experience on playing SSF hardcore. Build also uses the Force Vow, which is a global drop unique. You just might not have it for a while, and on SSF you're probably gonna clear all the tier 16 and quest either Exile without it. You will have to grind 1500 fusings just to 6-link it, or this unique might be expensive in trade. This build is totally functions without the Force Vow, on just clearing tier 16 and progressing. Just look at the health amount you can get with a good rare chest. Defenses should be fine and you should hold on. I just want to stress those points out so you guys understand it. I think this build is okay, you can level with it and you can league start it with it, but it's not gonna be perfect all the way. Back to leveling. Act 1. I recommend to mule duelist for some gems such as Spectral Thrall, Splitting Steel, and Chance to Bleed. There is 3 ways to level Marauder in Act 1, and in my opinion it mostly depends on links you get. If you get a lot of green links, choose projectile skills, and if you got a lot of red sockets at vendor, go with Ground Slam. After Mudflans, you can try grab Ancestor Totems, War Banner, Blood and Sand, Frost Blink plus Lapis Amulet to allow Frost Blinks. But most likely you're not gonna have enough currency for all that just to make sure to pick it up later. On 3, you rush versatility to solve your some attributes and accuracy, and then for 2-handed damage nodes. If your XP is fine, you will get them before Brutus, but if you're going really fast you might not have them. On Marauder, you want to get out of projectile skills as quickly as possible, cause Marauder only gives you melee damage scaling. We will do that at level 12, we will swap into Sunder. Your Sunder links probably should be Sunder, Added Fire, and Ruthless. Grab Lip Slam and Intimidating Cry in Act 1 also get Precision, but I want to point out, try not to level Precision at all. Try to keep it as level 1 for as long as possible. Precision there to solve your accuracy. If you don't need accuracy right now at this point, do not level Precision, it will only introduce mana problems. In Act 2, you would go to the Life and Axe nodes after that, and continue with Sunder leveling. The Intimidating Cry plus Sunder combo will one-shot most of the rares or even Act bosses. Do not forget to start doing Rustic Sarge recipe here. This recipe is not as efficient in Act 1, because bases are getting replaced very quickly and you don't have that many blacksmithing whetstones and other currency to get Rustic Sarge. Theoretically, you can instead of Axe nodes go for Warcry nodes right now and swap to Earthshatter in Act 2. But while it works, it's just not as powerful as later swaps, plus Sunder leveling is just that good. You can level any 2-hand Axe Marauder with it to maps. You can check out Alkaizer for Sunder leveling. He does it on a Jug, but Jug doesn't really give Sunder any damage. And for me, I'm going to showcase a fairly early swap for the purpose of the guide, because I know everybody just wants to swap to Earthshatter as early as possible. In Act 2, grab Herald of Ash, Blood Rage, World's Mark is optional during Act 2 and 3, but you might want to use it after Act 4 with Mark on hit. Get good support such as melee phase and close combat for your Sunder. Act 3, you can get the Determination aura and swap some damage order into Determination. I would recommend it to do that after the Resolute technique or even after Lab. And if you have currency, you can swap War Banner into Dread Banner. After Gravicious, swap Ancestral Protector into Ancestral War Chief and start doing Val Corrupted Zones for Val Ancestral War Chief, because the difference between those is huge in damage buff. Also collect all your Val gems for Val Orb Vendor recipe. On the tree, we're going to prepare to swap to Earthshatter and click a lot of Warcry nodes. Do the lab and get the Warbringer there. Melee and any leveling in current PoE is very socket heavy, so I will mention where you should get the gems, but if you don't have the right sockets on fresh League Start, it's fine to just get it later, okay? After the Dried Lake quest, you can get Berserk skill, and here I would recommend the swap to Earthshatter. I think it's the earliest point. You can continue with Sunder if you want it and you feel powerful, it's totally fine. Because you have a lot of damage multipliers and speed, Ascendancy provides a lot of rage generation to sustain Berserk. Just swap Sunder with Earthshatter gem and all your support gems will work. In Act 4 you would want to socket in Fist of War support, it makes War Cries a lot better. And the links you would want for War Cries is Intimidating Cry plus Seismic Cry plus Second Wind support. If you have an open 4 link, you would want to add Enduring Cry, but that can wait. After that, your leveling is decently smooth sailing, with only one bump on the road, such as mana. For that, I would recommend going into reservation nodes, freeing some mana pool and trying to get the Enduring Suffix on a decently big flask. Don't need to spam alts for it, just ID all magic mana flasks. And yeah, now we grabbed most of our damage nodes, so we will correct the tree to get more life and more damage. In Act 6, I would swap one support gem for Fortify and run Earthshatter Close Combat Fist of War Fortify. Later acts, try to get as many sockets as possible in Act 6-8. Try to get custom damage taken Molten Shell set up before the Solaris Lunaris fight in Act 8, because they can be very dangerous. And now we're preparing to maps. You should probably farm Blood Aqueduct up until level 62-64 and try to get some Chaos Res there. Pick up all the white amethyst rings and slap your essences and your alks into them. The reason for that is because I recommend farming June missions in foothills. This build is very mana heavy for Little Marauder, and we will solve mana with Alrian Runecrafts. You go to the foothills and reset zone until you get June mission, complete it, unveil everything. You don't have to farm Alrian here in foothills, he is a leader of Research Safe House. Just get some progress on Betrayal board and unveil cast resistances, so you're not mapping with minus 60 chaos res. Also make sure to get here some 6-socket items such as body armor and axe and try to craft on those. This build is very socket heavy. For early mapping, it's very important to set up flasks that provide huge amount of defense. That is a bleed and freeze flask on your life flasks, granite, quicksilver and silver flasks. Try to get curse reduction on your utility flags or elemental resistance suffixes on those, because curse and exposure can literally bring your resistances from 75 or 90 into 0. We start with using only rare items on our guy, which allows us a lot of different solutions to elements, such as shock and chill effect reduction on rings or gloves crafts, plus on jewels. Later it will be improved with Pantheon Brand Kick, one shock reduction craft plus Garrock Hand Pantheon makes you shock immune. Make sure to slam Essence of Losing onto helmets and body armor, so your mana pool is bigger before Alrian Ring crafts, so your gameplay is better. Usually gearing on this build is very simple, because we don't need to care about spell suppression. It's very straightforward, get more life, get more armor, and get more resistances on every slot. Before I quit yoinks in tier 16 I had like 200% all res, which was very nice. That's why you can start with Astral Plate for all res implicits and then swap into Glorious Plate. After Alrion ring crafts, you can swap out Alirov into 2 passive with a vendor recipe. I wanna mention possible mana reservation solutions, because spending 3 points on mana mastery can be cringe, and even with them there will be times where you just want to have bigger mana pool. The first 2 fairly simple is mana reservation on jewels. It can get up to 3%, but I would use them only if they have % life with it too. And second one is Essence of Losing. As I told, Marauder gets a lot of recenses on 3, so just slap those onto helm or chest piece and get some reasonable amount of life or armor on body armor with life mastery. The next solution for mana reservation is to get a helm enchant with Pride, Determination, mana reservation. I was farming a lot of Legion, and Legion rewards a lot of enchanted helmets. Just get one and craft something good in it. Then the solutions are as a cluster setup. I think it only makes sense once you get all 3 clusters, such as 8 passive, Fizz or 2-handed, and a 4-5 passive Exert medium cluster. And you finish up with a small cluster for mana reservation. Or you should go for Sovereignty tree, which in my opinion also makes sense once you get 2 clusters, large and medium. And now to Axe. Fairly mapping. Axe is very simple to get. Get a Karoo Chopper or Double Axe, use the highest Essence of Contempt on it that you have, and then craft % Fizz on it. That axe will carry you throughout white maps and low yellow maps. Try to upgrade your axe as much as possible and as quickly as possible. But mostly your upgrades will contain of using Essence of Contempt and rolling Hybrid Fizz mod on it, and then adding % Fizz like mine. June members also have a very high chance of dropping you a good axe because of 130% Fizz Veld modifier, and you can craft flat Fizz mod on it on top. Hitting the best possible axe is insanely difficult and almost impossible in SSF, but the best shot you can have is steal Essence into Hybrid mod and then do Aisling T4 after Katarina to add that Veld 130% Fizz mod. The way to get the best axe most of the time will be crafting on a fractured items or imprint crafting. I'm playing SSF, so I never had a chance to get one of those. Melee weapons are a pain to craft most of the time. The main thing to learn here and improve here is recognize when you need an axe upgrade, and when you think you need an axe upgrade, you will throw everything into it. Essences, Harvestry, Forge, Fossils, Rogue, Alter Regal Craft, and so on. Just throw everything and they will eat all of your resources when you need an upgrade. The important part is to use it at the right time so that you don't waste all your other resources that you might want to craft all other items. About getting the yoinks. Since Dawn Stratus are pretty much free, it's very common drop from Exile, and I think it's one of the cheapest yoinks from Exile. As for me, I think I improved as a player, and Legion and Quest Exile for me, even on hardcore, is no longer scary. Just don't forget to swap Warlord's Mark into Vulnerability Curse, because Warlord's Mark does not give you damage versus bosses, or single target damage. I would recommend starting with Legion and just getting one Zebak or Glorious Vanity. Don't try and go for some insane corruptions on notables at the beginning, just get one and go back into improving your gear, go back to Harvest, Expedition, Essences, whatever. Remember that Vendors 3-1 exist and it works on Glorious Vanity and all timeless unique jewel, and allows you to save some Divine so you don't need to use a Divine on a Glorious Vanity. After that, my progression, I felt safe to start farming Shapers, when the scariest thing is actually the Phoenix explosion during Witness and Maven invites. The Force Vow, as I mentioned, is not mandatory for this build during the progression, and it felt very common, unless it became more rare this patch. It's only unique on a Devout Chainmail. So if you get one Omen, you can use this one on a Devout Chainmail and it will reward you with a Force Vow. And it's probably good use for early Expedition specs on the Atlas tree. A lot of people spec Expedition early on, and yeah, you can probably get the Force Vow out of it. But I wanna stress that it is a global drop unique, and usually for me those uniques are banned on League starters, because you just might not get one. So, just a heads up, I want you guys to understand it. It is a powerful and you might spend a long time before you get one on SSF or not get one at all, but it can be very expensive on a trade league. For jewelry, rings and amulets, try to get 2 good rolled suffixes that you like. Attributes essences are really good for this. Small Dumb Marauder wants more intelligence. Then add suffix cannot be changed on the bench and just reforge chaos and harvest. It will guarantee to add a chaos resistance to a ring, because chaos resistance is the only chaos affix that exists on a ring. Then add suffixes cannot be changed again and use veiled chaos. Before you unveil, make sure to add flat mana to it. It will block 4 different veiled modifiers that you don't want. And only then you go to June and unveil life. It will guarantee to be unveiled life if you have a manas prefix. Replace mana with mana cost reduction and you got your jewelry. You can do the same for gloves as I did, but instead of veiled chaos step, you use reforge life or eldritch chaos to hit high life on a prefix. I dropped a storm shroud unique jewel that allowed me to solve all ailments with shock avoidance from essence and a beast jewel. Slap essence of torment on a belt and get some good stuff on it. All the previous meta mods crafting apply to belts too. You can just use this belt plus Brian King Pantheon and chill reduction jewel to solve freeze and chills if you don't have a Storm Shroud unique jewel. Honestly, there is no good way to craft clusters. Prepare a lot of exalts for it. Go for harvest, reforge, fossils and just regal orals or even just chaos orb spamming. Use as many reforges as possible and it should do the job. I think I just hit everything with harvest reforges and then finished with exalts. And the tree without clusters is just as good, offensively if not better, but you will lose a lot of defenses because clusters allow your damage to be more efficient. You also have an options just not do 6 life mastery and have like 1.5k less life and less armor, but do 20% more damage. But I wouldn't recommend that tree. I love life and armor. And that's about it. That's how I got all my gear. I will link some POBs, I will link my character, and I will link characters that could be improved from my character. Looking back at playing this character in a Crucible League, I would probably end up using one unset ring so I can have faster attacks on Lip Slam. I think it was a mistake for me not to use this. Second big change in Trial of the Ancestor is a bug fix for Earthshatter. Turns out I had less overlaps than I expected, so thanks GG for the damage buff. I already have 2 full boss kill videos early into the build progression on my channel. I think I was something like level 98 with slightly worse gear. If I end up playing this build again, feel free to check my PoE profile or just ask here on Discord while I'm also just yoinks. I will try to link in description as much as possible and as many of my contacts as possible.